I will call the May 21st Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting to order. For preliminary matters, we'll go through roll call first. So Lindsay is absent. Sadia. Tim. Brent. Here. Burton.
I'm here.
Robert. Smut. Martha.
Here.
And Justin.
Here.
Okay. Moving on to 2B, approval of agenda. Is there anything we need to add or change on the agenda?
Yeah, just Leslie Clark, our director, who's joining, is gonna would like to add an item. You guys are okay with it, kind of at the beginning of the agenda regarding the McCaslin Trail connection. She'll provide more of an update on it and needing Parks potential endorsement on that project. So.
I can provide more if you decide to add this to the agenda.
I'm good adding it to the agenda. Any opposed to adding it to the agenda?
No.
So we'll add that in as ahead of 3A. So we'll tackle that one first, if that's okay then, Leslie. Okay.
That'd be fabulous. Thank you.
Awesome. You got it. All right. So then public comment. So we have public comment in the room, and then just for awareness, is there any public? Oh, Tim's online. Great. Any public comment on Zoom that we need to make sure we have too? We have
No, just all attendees. I don't think anyone, no public comment.
Okay.
On Zoom.
Okay, so public comment, we do have a limit for 5 minutes per person. You guys come together, so maybe split your 10, but no, I'd love to hear why you're here and your comment.
My name is 550 Superior Drive. First of all, the progress on Central Park has been amazing up until about 3 weeks ago. They finished the paving the basketball court, and then it seems like everything kind of stopped all at once. And I was hoping this thing was open by July. I'm hoping for a status update there and sort of if there was a work order stop or what the deal was. So I'm not sure if this group can answer that question, but
Yeah, I think, sorry, Leslie, don't mean to put you on the spot. I imagine you can provide an update on that maybe, right? Central Park?
I can. Actually, a lot of the slowdown in work is due to the wet conditions that they have up there, but they are also waiting on some soil testing that they need to move forward with some of the items in the project. So we are still projecting opening in July, probably late July. But there are several elements that are on back order, which include the shelters and the restroom. So the thought process right now is we would go ahead and open the park with those items still outstanding, and they would probably arrive between October and November for installation.
okay, so waiting on some things, but can still proceed on others, basically.
Correct. Yes. So they're working on a lot of the landscape, irrigation, some of the utility infrastructure that's moving forward. Right now, they've got the majority of the basketball court and the seat wall installed. The walkways are installed. I think they still have a seating area that needs to be installed. But the soil testing is what they need to move forward with the details on the shelter and the restrooms. So, and those items are kind of long lead time items. So they're projected to arrive on site October, November for installation.
But we don't bother your meeting with this. How do we get these updates in the future?
Yeah, sorry. That was my concern. I'm Ann Hitchler, I also live at 550 Superior. I think that the work all of a sudden started, which was fantastic because we've been living there for 7 years with nothing happening. And then all of a sudden it just stopped very abruptly. And so I think I would love more updates on what was happening. I don't know if that's something that this group can provide or a different group we should ask, but that would be great.
Certainly, you can always email staff. You could email myself or the town council. We're happy to provide updates. And I have actually had some direct calls from neighbors up there asking for updates, so that works as well.
You can also email us at PARC because Leslie and Brian are part of that, and we can make sure we get back to you. So it's hard because we've seen a lot of projects that have starts and stops, and it's not always clear why. There's always a reason behind it, but how that's clear and make sure we're getting answers to those, all of us in the community.
Okay. This is not financial.
No, that's a great one, right? We're waiting on, I guess, like soil density to make sure that what we put in doesn't sink or move, something like that, and
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a compliment of the park. We were at Purple Park for our Donuts continuation today. It is stunning. I mean, every time you're there, it's,
Yeah.
I know it's the
Really
same for all the community.
we were there.
Really amazing.
Congratulations, fifth graders moving on, yes. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your comment and hopefully that answers the question today. And then, yeah, you have, if you need, we can make sure to get Leslie's email. It's out there, Brian's, or just PARC, and we'll make sure it gets over.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And then just a matter of record keeping, Tim, will you just come off and acknowledge you're there? So we've got you recorded so that we've got the quorum for the meeting.
I'm here. I've got my company background. I'll take that off. But yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Nope, you're good. Thank you, Tim. All right. So we're official. So glad you're taking notes already.
Was, yes.
That's why we're stopping now. Okay. Great. So no other public comment online?
No.
Awesome. Okay, so moving on to our added agenda topic, the McCaslin Trail connection. So Leslie, back over to you.
Thank you for allowing this addition to your agenda. It is timely. We are looking for a letter of support. We have a drafted one here that we can use. I think Brian has it up on the screen. Or if you want to put it up there. We're asking several groups to help us with letters of support. This is a congressional funding opportunity for a project that we have sought grant funding for in the past and have not received it. So this is a alternative funding opportunity for this project. It would provide a multi-use path on the west side of McCaslin from Colton Trailhead all the way up to Rock Creek Parkway. So we often have folks who want to traverse that area and not necessarily have to cross the road. So this would provide, I believe they're proposing a 10-foot wide hard surface trail on that western edge. It is something that the residents at the Ridge are very supportive of so that they can reach the Colton Trailhead without crossing the road twice. But also during intermittent closings of the trail that runs from Colton to Ormond Roche, this would be an alternative route. It also helps with some of our cycling traffic that shares the road, going up and down the hills on McCaslin, which can create some traffic congestion. And this would just provide an alternative path for some of those cyclists and pedestrians to walk off of the roadway on that western edge.
Would it be ADA compliant?
Not necessarily the whole way, as you know, that there's quite a significant hill that we have to negotiate. They will try to make it as ADA accessible as possible. But that I'm sure that there will be areas that will not be.
I think that, that's great. I think that segment is great, Leslie. Just for my own benefit, several years ago, I attended a board meeting and it was proposed that they have, where Indiana and McCaslin meet, have a similar path that takes you down to the Colton, the trailhead. It was that, you don't have to give me the history, but is that 100% squashed? So a multi-use path from Indiana and McCaslin down to the Colton trailhead.
I mean, nothing's 100% squashed. I think that would be beneficial. This is maybe a baby step in that direction. That segment I think is a little bit more challenging, but it's definitely still an opportunity that's out there.
Yeah, I remember they brought up, one of the main purposes was school kids and traffic, foot traffic for school kids getting to and from El Dorado. So that's cool. I just curious. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
So
I mean, we can, if you all want to talk about it, if you want to vote on it, I will say that our submission deadline is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So I hate to bring this to you with such a short timeline, but that's what we're looking at.
So let me kind of repeat back what I heard, and then I think maybe we can make a motion vote on it. So this is really as part of what other town boards and committees are doing, is providing our written support to make our community safer, to secure alternate sources of funding for something that we think will allow residents and people traversing that area to do so more safely for both pedestrians, cars, and then or pedestrians, cyclists, and then cars as well.
Very nicely put.
And it's gonna be funded 100% by this grant or just a portion of it?
I think that's yet to be determined. I suspect that we will have a match to some degree, but we don't have the details of that yet. Congressional funding is a little bit looser than a traditional grant process. We're going to ask for the full project, but we'll probably get a portion.
Okay, just curious.
And was this just one idea out of a number of ideas that boiled to the top, or we have to stick to something very similar or this exact stretch?
This has gone through some vetting already. Our Public Works Department is actually the one submitting this grant as a transportation improvement and enhancement. I don't think this year there's an opportunity for any alteration, but these opportunities come around every year. So future congressional funding for different projects may be something we could look at in the future.
Thank you.
And that is quite a hillside. However, if my memory serves, on the northern section of that part of the west side of McCaslin. Do we have any idea if it is gonna be a matching grant, how much that whole cost might be to the town?
Well, this isn't saying that we're gonna pay for it, right? I think that would still come later if it is a matching grant.
We're gonna pay for half of it.
Yeah, it definitely will have to go through our typical approval process for all projects where we'll, solicit for competitive bids, and this will have to go through council for full approval.
The way I'm hearing this today is like, we think this is a good idea to ask for the full funding from the congressional directed spend. What happens after that will depend on how much they fund. And then if we are gonna do it, then it would go through the town council to weigh in, to vote, to decide, do we wanna spend that other half and do it or not?
Yeah.
I don't wanna feel like we're signing a spend half of it. I feel like we wanna say we're behind asking our congressional funding to pay for the whole thing.
Yeah.
Does that help? That's where my head's at.
Okay.
Okay.
I motion to approve.
That's all good?
Yes.
Do we have a quorum now?
Yes, we do,
Second.
because Tim's online. Okay, so we had, so we gotta capture this.
Yep.
So we had a motion from Justin, second from Martha,
Third from Burton.
third from Burton. Do we need a third?
No, second, yep.
Okay,
Sorry.
and then so we'll take votes from those committee members present. So, Tim, are you there and able, do you have any questions or?
No, it sounds great, actually. So it's definitely a yes for me.
Okay, yes from Tim, Martha?
Yes.
Burton, yes.
Yes.
Justin, yes. Brent votes yes also. So we have the motion passed to approve, the recommendation to go to the congressional for the district. So, I can get that signed in Robert's absence and make sure, Leslie, you have it for 1 o'clock tomorrow.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great.
Martha, do you mind just making sure that's captured in the notes?
Got it.
Okay,
Got it.
I know, yeah, okay. It's easier to tell you, ask you now than,
Do I have to include the people who were absent?
no.
I recorded
Just what
everything
the
that we said.
motion was and then
Got it.
who the names of who voted.
Okay, so moving on, moving on to 3A, which was the BRS update on pool survey results and pool project. I think from a time standpoint, I'm not sure what you guys had prepared. I guess my question would be is, we've had some time, it went out to digest the pool survey. Does anybody really want to spend time there? Do we want to talk more about the current state of the pool project and where it's going next?
The latter.
The latter? Okay, so unless there was something that's maybe changed from the board presentation, as we all looked kind of through that as well beforehand, we can move into the most current status on the pool project, if you guys are good with that.
Yeah, and actually we have Mary with Barker Rinker CCAT, our consultant. She's joining us here. She's gonna provide an update on kind of where things stand, some updates since the recent town council meeting, and then also share with the group the survey results as well. Kind of the big, not drilling down to the nitty gritty, but then obviously Leslie's joining on Zoom, and then Jordan Hayes, our project manager on the town side, if need be, for questions. So Mary, I made you a co-host. Let me know. If you need to share your screen, you should be able to, so. Yep, I just saw.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just. Do you want to, I just saw the presentation, but then it went away. You want
Can you see it now?
to, now I
Yes.
can, yep, now we
Yep,
can.
yep.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thanks for having me, everyone. I think I met some of you at our public open house. I do have an update here. The first half of this is largely the presentation on public engagement results that we did give to the board last week. I can run through it just quickly. I think what I just heard is we don't want to spend a lot of time on engagement results, and I'll make sure we have kind of more time on just our updated concepts and our current where we stand on the project. So really we summarized our aquatic users focus group meeting we had with the swim team and elevation athletics. We showed them these ACE activity boards, which are the same boards we showed to the general public at our open house. And everyone was sort of able to vote on activities using these images. So as a quick summary of results from our meeting with the aquatic users, their overall hopes and dreams for the North Pool are listed here. A lot of it obviously just revolving around the swim team's needs and swim lessons. So, a desire for an extended swimming season, whether it's 3 season or year round, a heated indoor space for the teams to use, more lighting on the pool deck, a larger prep kitchen area for concessions when they're running their swim meets, an interest in aquatic fitness classes, outdoor lockers or cubbies that would be great for the kids on the swim team to use when they're there, an automatic pool cover system, some on-deck showers were noted just as that would be really helpful to kind of encourage the kids to rinse off before and after they're in the pool. More bike racks because we know that they're constantly at capacity with the existing ones, and a pulley training system they would use as a part of their training on the pool deck. They also summarized here their fears or concerns about the project, the depth of the water being a concern with not going too deep to impact swim lessons, but also for flip turns in the shallow end. Right now, it's a little too shallow, so just addressing the depth overall. The construction schedule, just to make sure it doesn't impede on the following season and next year. Any plans to make the pool smaller was a concern. We're not heading in that direction. Again, don't want to lose the shallow end because it's great for the little kids and their swim lessons. Using the bench as well, they use for lessons. And then limiting our lessons at all to one pool or the other. They think it's nice to have the option at both pools.
Yeah, there's a question on that. So the bench, that's talking about the bench at South Pool, right? So some of that's blend of South Pool and North Pool feedback.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we discussed both pools with them, even though this project is for North Pool. It was just to get input overall.
Okay, and so just, did I hear you right, that we're talking about making the shallow end of North Pool deeper to allow more space for flip turns?
Yeah, that was one of the concerns that was brought up by the swim team, is that people are scraping their hands on the bottom of the pool as they do their flip turns. So if there's a way to somewhat increase the depth there. Next, we just have the summary of our public open house, which we had some great attendance and input from, including these comment cards. So we had not only those activity boards, we had these comment cards people could fill out as well. And we also had the hopes and dreams boards and fears and concerns boards for both pools at that open house as well. This chart is a summary of the votes on the activity board. So where we had those images hung on the wall, this just shows how many votes each item received. So you can see with the most votes on the left side, we had a splash pad, and then a slide with a run out, lap swimming, etc., all the way down. So this was all inclusive of all of the votes we got just that one night at our open house. And this again was kind of combining both pools. It's not specific to one pool or the other. The hopes and dreams and fears and concerns are for separated by pool. So this starts with just the North Pool. These are all of the comments we received that night that people wrote on to the sticky notes and shared that night. Luckily, like with our online survey and some of the ability of the comment cards, people could also write in a lot more of their goals for this project. What we've done is sort of just kind of highlighted in the colors here when we started to really see some repetition in comments, things like the extended season year round, upgrading the restrooms and locker rooms. So you can sort of start to get an idea with these responses. I'm not going to go through every single one, but we can kind of start to our job was really to like pull out the similarities and somehow compile into some results that we could analyze. Same with the South Pool here, hopes and dreams. There are lots of mention of splash pads and a newer water slide. We had comments too, just about the temperature of the water overall, to being too cold in both pools. So, you know, comments for hot tubs, cold plunge. This really kind of just summarizes everyone's input that night. Fears and concerns for the South Pool. You know, getting rid of any of these kind of fun water features that are great for the kids. Again, the water's too cold. Any type of restricting kids using the pool, since it's very popular with families. I know you all have already seen the online survey results, so I'm not going into those really in depth. I didn't include that, but this was just one thing we had highlighted with the board about whether people would use the pool year round and whether they'd be willing to pay a fee to do so. So in essence, this chart is kind of taking all of that public open house and aquatic user feedback and sort of tallying up how often we saw certain comments and their similarities, kind of applying a tally count to those. And then this would just be in conjunction with the online survey results, which had somewhat more limited features listed in those results. But overall, here on the left side, there were, a lot of votes and support for the year-round or an extended season at the North Pool. And the second highest being keeping North Pool adult-friendly and South Pool kid-friendly. Those kind of a theme we saw throughout all of the public engagement was a lot of support for the pools kind of having the different atmosphere and not losing that with this renovation project. And in this chart, just so you know, we only included options that got 5 or more votes. When you have take everything together, there were lots of one-off comments. And so we would just, to make it easier to decipher this information, it's those that had 5 or more. And then, so this chart just sort of summarizes the overall hopes and dreams from our public engagement phase. And the types of upgrades for the North Pool here that had the most votes or most kind of support from the public input. Free season swimming or year round, earlier morning swim hours. We know obviously that's just something here we have to deal with because the swim team has the pool in the mornings. A hot tub, more kid-friendly features. And again, this is a balance with keeping it also kind of adult friendly at the same time. Better lockers, restrooms, shower areas, more shade. That was a very frequent comment we got. Priority for lap swimming and swimming and aquatic fitness classes at this pool. And same for the South Pool, the hopes and dreams overall were for a splash pad, a new water slide with run out, a warmer water temperature, keeping it kid friendly, pool parties and birthdays, better locker rooms, and more shade at this pool as well. Are there any questions on the engagement? Because right now we have some kind of updated site and building plans to review as well.
I don't know that we have questions on the engagement. I think a statement, so we talked about this in some of our other park topics, is we do feel like there's an identity, and yes, North Pool is more adult friendly. But I think to us, making sure and pushing for that it is also still kid friendly is important, and that we're not over indexing on feedback from adults who are capable of doing things for themselves versus that's not always the case for kids. So you'll probably hear that. I will speak for myself, and from some of the feedback we've talked about from a park standpoint. So I think if you talk about the site plan concept, and I got a chance to watch the meeting, heard the questions and had a couple of additional things from there, but I know you guys have already done some takeaway after that. And so maybe if you want to walk us through this, and then we can share feedback, thoughts, and just make sure we know where we can help, give feedback, and keep it moving is probably the best approach. Unless you guys have anything else before we go through.
Yeah, see what she has to say.
And then did you guys look at the original site plans and those changes?
Well, they showed this in the board.
Yeah, so I just didn't know if they need to walk through kind of everything and the feedback that came out of the board meeting versus just jump into what this is kind of our current starting point.
John?
Okay, yeah, so if you want to walk us through this, Mary, that'd be great.
Great. So after our board meeting, we did kind of have the direction to proceed with looking to relocate the pool mechanical room. Because what that does, the existing one needs to be expanded anyways. It's too small for the equipment that needs to go in there, especially with upgrading the equipment and the splash pad. So since we have to enlarge it, we looked at relocating it. This over here is not like a set location. It's something we're exploring. Just so you know, we're still finessing through this idea, but that is the current concept. Because in turn, that opens up space in the existing bathhouse building to give more programming. Things like a lifeguard office, which we currently don't have at that pool. The other change from our last site plan with the board is we were proposing adding more pool deck with concrete to the north side, but we have made the decision with direction from the town as well, because we have great mature trees there. We don't want to take those down. So we're going to be keeping the tree and grassy area on the north there. So that was a change from our last site plan. And then this is our current layout for the building itself. So we are looking at pretty much a full gut and renovation of the building to make it bright and sparkly and new and add more amenities that you currently just don't have. So the change would basically be we'll renovate the lobby. We'll give you a nice new control desk and check-in area. The staff will have it set up much better for them to use. Then you will have instead of a separate men's and women's locker room, which the current ones, they're very inefficient the way they're laid out. It's a lot of wasted space. No one really uses the showers in those areas. So we are going to convert that instead to individual restrooms and changing rooms. They are the size of one large toilet stall, but they will be fully insulated drywall walls with solid doors so that they are actually individual restrooms and changing rooms. And you would have shared sinks out in the open for everyone to use there. And we will relocate our door that accesses the deck so that we will capture a little bit more of that space for the interior here. And on the upper right, we will have 2 family changing rooms. So each of these rooms will have a toilet, sink, a shower, and a bench. So really great space for a mom with her little kids to take everyone in there at once, get everyone ready for the pool or ready to leave. Great wet areas right off of the pool deck. You won't have to walk through the lobby to get to them. And behind that, we'll have a storage space for the staff because we know they're very short on storage right now. And we will also planning to put in a single user restroom that will be year-round access. You won't have to come into the pool fence to use it. For tennis players, other people kind of just walking the trails to be able to have a restroom accessible to them in this area.
That's year round.
Yes.
Park loves its restrooms.
Get rid of that porta potty.
On the opposite side of the lobby, we are going to have an interior space here that will be a classroom for training for the swim teams can use. It will be a party room that could be rented out that people can reserve for birthday parties. Also a space the community can use as extra space when they're in need of a community meeting. And the idea currently is we'll put like a nice glass garage door on the exterior of that could be opened up and become sort of an indoor-outdoor classroom as well. I think a great space that the swim team would love to have for training and indoor classes, or even just a place to let all the kids warm up when they're out of the water. Then we are taking a portion of the current outdoor covered patio, and we're going to take about half of it and enclose it to create a lifeguard office, first aid station that will have a lot of glass on the outside of it. So they'll have easy visibility to both the main pool and the splash pad, and kind of direct access right off the deck. So it won't, be lifeguards taking their breaks out on the deck anymore. They'll have a place to go inside and sit. Also be nice to have it air conditioned for breaks. And then just behind that would be a small break room with a kitchenette. This will be larger than the kitchenette that's there now, so we can provide a little bit more millwork and storage. It will have access from the deck so the swim team can use it when they're doing their concessions during meets. It will also have access to the party room. So if someone is renting out that party space, they would have access to be able to use the refrigerator, use the sink and everything in that kitchenette without this having to be one joint space where they would then be inside the lifeguard office. That's kind of the driving factor behind keeping these 2 spaces separate. So that's kind of where we've landed based on our feedback from the board. One of their big concerns was just the lifeguards, the office having a lot of visibility to the pool from wherever they're sitting, making sure they can hear whistles even when they're inside. So, we'll definitely have some windows there they can open up and be able to hear what's going on the deck. So that's kind of where we are with our current plan there. We have gotten some cost estimates for this already. And this, just for the building renovation itself, the estimate right now is at 1.1 million. And on top of that, because we know this isn't just about the bathhouse renovation, we want to make sure the pool is also new and exciting and it has some great features. We're keeping in mind that we don't want this to have the same atmosphere as South Pool. So the decision's been made, we're not going to be adding a slide to this pool to kind of control that atmosphere a little more. But we do not want to be excluding families or kids from using this pool. We want to make sure there are great amenities added to this that are kid-friendly. But the idea is they might not be so permanent like a slide or a mushroom feature. They would be more features that could be removed when there's a swim meet going on. So something like restorative jets, that's like also for adults, people love these. It's if you're there to do physical therapy in the pool. We're also looking at things like a volleyball net and basketball hoops. Those are great activities, especially for the teenager range age of kids that are at this pool. Those teenagers might not want to be hanging out at South Pool because there's too many little kids. These are features that are really easy to remove and take down so that they're not going to impede the swimming functions of this pool either. And then, of course, aquatic fitness classes at this pool has great opportunity to do these fit mat classes where you can be doing yoga and workouts on the water. And then, of course, we're looking at a splash pad and designing some great fun features for that. Our current concept for the splash pad is that it will be accessible all of the time outside of pool hours. So to use the splash pad, you won't have to only go when the pool is open. You won't have to go into the lobby and check in at the pool. You'll be able to just go enjoy the splash pad like a playground, like open all the time. Potentially adding a climbing wall here to this pool. Again, just another fun feature for kids to enjoy. Things like these obstacle courses that are, again, really, they're easy to remove, but they're great to put in there when you want to have some kid time in the pool. And then we are looking at more shade structures. So we'll have some different concepts here of what do these look like? Is it more of like some private cabana areas? Is it more of just a big shade structure that has some gathering space underneath it and flexible furniture so someone could actually hold sort of an outdoor party in an area of the pool deck here. Other things like games, like these are really easy things to add in terms of amenities. They're not going to impact the swim team or the lap swimming, but there are things we can put around the site so that there's more amenities for families and kids to enjoy at this pool. And then, of course, just upgraded the building amenities itself. You know, this is an idea of just how the new lobby will feel when you come in with fresh finishes with a really nice new desk. An idea for the classroom and party space, flexible furniture that can be rearranged, but it could have some great glass to it and really bring in a lot of natural light so that building won't feel so dark anymore. And then again, our sort of shared individual restroom area that will feel a lot more open. It feels a lot, you know, less dingy. It'll all be new and you know, some fun finishes there as well. And
can we pause?
Absolutely.
Before we go through the funding, so I've got a couple of thoughts I was written down. There's a few things that I'll just say I do not agree with that you stated as kind of factual. So I want to just hear from anybody else and get thoughts on, you know, if we can go all the way back to just the overall floor plate and then the building.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask for some maybe coaching here from Leslie and Brian. If I hear something like it's been decided there's no slide, like who made that decision and is that a real decision and we don't go down that path at all, or that is still something that this committee feels very strongly about pushing for and we should be talking about?
Well, we certainly want to hear your concerns and input. So if that is something you feel strongly that we should be considering, it just means we can have another conversation about it. We have had conversations with the town. So that it doesn't need, you know, if I was under the impression it was decided, but it doesn't mean.
No, and I don't mean it against you, Mary. It's more of a question from Leslie and Brian. Like if that was decided somewhere and not shared as a decision, like I don't want to fight against something that's been decided, but if it's still open, I'd like to.
Well, among other things, I was at the community feedback and I just saw a lot more play features, but I didn't do the math as to the number of responses in my head, but from what I can tell from this presentation, it is swim meet, $1.1 million renovation of the bathhouse for the swim team. And and everyone else gets some basketball hoops and a climbing wall that's removable.
Well, and I think it's always the balance of the feedback that came from the town. I won't say it's wrong, but I think it's very biased in adult friendly.
That's what I mean.
Being interpreted as non-playful for kids. So I think it's a very tough balance that you guys have to strike, but there are a few things that I think if we can clarify and make sure we're clear, and then as a committee, if we're all aligned on what we really want to make a recommendation on, and we need to be very formal about that with the speed this is going.
Yeah.
And push hard for those things, because this is the kind of the one and only chance at the pace this is going. So if you go back one more, and I'll save mine till the end, because I want to hear from other folks, but any thoughts, from you all on how this, one question, where's the storage unit that's currently out there today?
On the deck, you mean?
Yeah, there, Flyers, we have that big, and I'm a Flyers parent, right? I'll say that very openly. We have that big storage unit where the grills and all the stuff for the meats is stored, and all the equipment that's currently on the deck today. Is that staying there?
So we know the location's important. The thing we are considering is, do we try to rebuild it so that the architecture of it speaks a little more to the entire, everything else. Because we have to add the auxiliary pool mechanical room, one consideration is, do we somehow combine those spaces into one L-shaped building on the deck? That would also maybe have some overhangs, providing shade, maybe there'd be some benches in front of it. So it's in flux, but we know that you use that storage and it needs to stay there.
So I want to, two things on that. I know I'm doing what I said I wouldn't, which is talk first. Is this shows that the storage, that 1,000 square foot for the mechanical, is outside the pool fence? I know there was a lot of discussion about that at the town board. Is that actually where we think that will go, is outside the fence and in that current open area?
It will potentially go inside the fence. It will potentially be both. Start inside the fence and continue down into that area. We have some grading there, but we might use that grading to our advantage with the pit needed inside that building. But we once we get our survey from our civil team, which we should get any day now, we'll have a little bit more information, because another guidance we're trying to follow is to preserve as many trees in that area as we can.
Okay, so I'll hold my other comments to hear from the rest of our committee.
Yeah, I think same as what Brent's saying. I don't want to spend any time on anything that's already decided on, so it's pointless to talk about it. In the dinner with the board, a couple of us, and I was thinking that I was gonna third the motion, kind of, that we're recommending the shallow pool for the kids. Obviously, you're ditching that, and it sounds like that's probably a decision.
Let's talk about what we want, and then
Okay.
we'll put that
Well, I mean, I
back
think
to solve.
the three of us, for sure, because you mentioned it, and I didn't mention it because you guys, I think it's invaluable at the South Pool, and I think we used it at North Pool when it was operable, when my daughter was first born, so I think it's immensely useful, versus a splash pad, overall, but that's fine. Also, again, kind of what Burton was saying, and no offense to the Flyers, but
No.
I'm agreeing with you. On your build, this thing is wildly awesome, right? I think it's really impressive. But when you're going over the different spaces that you're gonna build and saying swim team, like exactly what you just said, they represent, they provide 1/10 of the cost of the pool. They should get consideration, but I wouldn't say we are making this space or building this space for the swim team. And that's what it's used for. This is changing for the swim team. This is meeting for the swim team. That they do whatever you want, right? Obviously, my recommendation is you do not package it as such. You don't put on the door, swim team only. This is a community pool unless they're gonna pay 50% or something like that. That's just my soft recommendation. Also, lastly, you know, of course, right now we have a shaded area in the bottom right there for the screen. Right now there's trees there and benches. That's where people congregate when they're waiting for courts. The kids wait for lessons and then they all come on. So my only request there is at least along that outside, let's just say, I guess it would be the east side of the building, so the, you know, lower right, yep. At least have some benches there or something to substitute for what you're ripping out, which is the benches in the shade. That's all my only request, because you do have to wait for courts, especially when people are on tangent, when they're doing tennis instruction, that's not registered and they're not actually allowed to give tennis instruction, but that's all another topic. So, but you need to have a waiting area for kids and adults, while they're waiting for courts. It needs to be somewhere, up against just a single bench there with, you know, the building will shade the bench, just somewhere so people can hang out and wait until their session or wait for a court to be available. That's my only request. Sorry, so lengthy.
No, I think it's great. This is what we want to make sure that we're supporting our feedback as town members or you know, people in the town, as well as what we want to push for as a committee. So I think it's all good stuff. Anything else that jumps out for you?
No.
Martha?
So Tim's got his hand up.
Tim? Yeah, it's coming to you, man.
Yeah, I generally agree with everybody here. I'd say, if you're going to, if you want to deepen the pool for the flip turns, then I'd say this is like eliminating the wading pool, for a splash pad is probably not a great idea. So I would say preserve the wading. If you're going to deepen the deep end, you're going to need like a wading pool or some kind of. So I would say like a splash pad structure that has a narrow wading pool and kind of like those bucket splashy things or something like that. But you're gonna need something for the small kids to be able to wade around in and cool off in. That's not just a concrete pad, splash pad. Um, uh, and that might mean it might not be, you know, they might have to come in. It might have to be a controlled space. But I would definitely say if you're gonna deepen the shallow end for the flip turns, you're gonna need a wading pool space for sure.
Yeah.
And just to confirm, the shallow end we're overall, because we are going to switch to a perimeter gutter system at this pool, that automatically adds 6 inches of water depth to the pool. So we're not going to be making the pool structure any deeper, but with that change, we will have a little 6 inches more depth overall.
Yeah, but the effective depth increase is going to make it harder for toddlers and little kids, and
Yeah, I
it's
hear you.
yep.
That's great point, Tim. Anything else on your mind for it, Tim?
No, I mean, I think you guys kind of nailed it. I mean, I would say like what I'm seeing is not a huge change to like North Pool. It's just the messaging, and I'd be sensitive about that. I mean, you're going to create an uphill barrier if it's like flyers this and flyers that. It is cool. It's going to have those amenities for a swim team, but I would just be aware of how it's communicated. Because I mean, honestly, it's not a huge change. It's just somewhat of an upgrade.
No,
No,
I was just
So-
gonna say, I appreciate y'all pointing that out in the messaging, because I know I said a lot like, oh, but don't worry, it won't impact the swim team. Knowing that, you know, how we convey that and everything, it does not mean that that's the number one priority.
Every bullet point was about some people.
Yeah, or me.
Well, they had done a separate focus
It
group.
was a separate.
And that they were aggregating and pulling all that together. And so like I'm split. So as a Flyers parent, I think it's myopic to say don't move the storage if that creates more available space for other amenities, because we don't want to put the blocks out 4 times a year and they're heavy. Like we have hundreds of volunteer hours where all the parents are out there schlepping tents and starting blocks like that. It's a couple of extra steps, and I do want to challenge some of those things to make sure that we're, I think, making the most of this opportunity, because it won't come up again for 20+ years. And so my question on the store is that if that were to move, and it's, and I'm not saying remove it or put it all the way in the, you know, behind the grassy area, but if you move that storage from kind of where it's reflected today down, so can I do your screen show up, like what's this box?
Oh, I think that's the current flyers storage.
So if that current storage moves, like, is there not room to put a steep slide with a deck run out in that area? Is there not room to put the splash pad? And I like what you said about a splash pad being available outside of the pool year round, but then I feel like we're losing valuable space on a tight footprint by making that happen there. And so there is a park. There are playground and other structures just further east of this. And is there an opportunity where we should be looking to put a splash pad there and keep, or, change the wading pool to a 0 depth entry wading pool, so it is more like swim focused rather than splash pad focused? I don't know what's in the art of the possible, but I know, I heard Mayor Lasis and the, community, like, if it was around 5 million for each pool, the original thing was 4.5. I know things will come up, but I feel like we could push it further in terms of like exploring, I think it was $500,000 to $700,000 on that list to go to 10 lanes, because we'd have to dig and, re-platform it. To me, that is probably an equitable cost to putting in a diving well, right? And doing something to change it enough so it feels like an investment versus really focusing on the kind of the building side. So I don't know if you captured all, I can go back through and bullet point those, but I would challenge, or I would state from the park committee standpoint, we would not want to put a splash pad in that area. We would rather prefer that to be a 0 depth entry with a little bit of a wading pool for those younger people, especially as Tim pointed out, like 6 inches makes a difference to those little kids, bobbing up and down on that north side of the pool there. So I don't know how far that decision is. The other question I had, so right now where that green is, it's all trees. I was confused why we were putting permanent shade structures where all the trees are.
No, the trees, we've moved those and they'll now be kind of surrounding the tree area and not where the trees are. We're keeping those trees, yes.
So from a usage standpoint, I will say a lot of times, and I'm at this pool a lot, right? So it's why you hear my passion. People are always out there sunbathing in that area. And if they want shade, they pull the chairs back under the trees. So I just wouldn't want that to become wasted space or like structures that don't actually add shade because people move themselves into the shade quite often over there. So I guess it would challenge, is that the right place to add shade versus some of the other areas that I know can be, exposed?
I think there's also opportunity on this side of the deck if we wanted to do shades there instead. We're not done on this canopies being here where they are. This was more of a pricing document so that we could get a price for if we add 800 square feet of shade canopies, how much would it be? So okay. Now that we know, in the budget and it's in the money we're working with in terms of where they go is still to be determined. Yeah. But that's good back to know.
And that area where you circled, right? And I'll just, again, I'd love for you guys to come out, in the next week or two and see how this pool actually gets used before we make decisions. Because that deeper side of the pool, the kids are constantly playing the run and walk and jump games in there. There's tons of noise, tons of splashing that comes from that area already, which is why if you create some space there, a slide that goes, towards the storage unit or towards the bottom doesn't make it any more noisy or more unadult friendly than it is today, because that's really where the older kids are playing, while the younger kids are playing, on the west side. So that north side of the pool where that nice area is, to me, that's the area where I see a lot of the adults relax because they can go and sit back. And I wouldn't want to, again, take that away, because I get that as a parent and as an adult. So again, I think there's some stuff to maybe push on and see what the appetite of the board for something a little bit more is. I think there's a lot of basics in the footprint that can't change, otherwise it blows the budget immediately. But I think some of those other things would resonate with what the community has told us and what I know the children specifically have told us in the community.
Yeah, I would say on some of those survey results that you had previously with the columns on the left side being the highest and the right side being the lowest, the number, if you aggregate half of those columns, I would venture to guess that the numbers on 3/4 of the right side would be higher than something, those are, I basically aggregate something other than swim meet focused, adult focused activities. They're more, I guess my point is, I think if you add all those numbers up that are lower on the right, they're gonna be higher than the highest column on the left.
This is for both pools though, right, Mary?
Yeah.
Yes, this is for both.
Right, and all I'm saying is, from what I love the presentation, and I have nothing against the Flyers, they're a very important, sports organization in this community, but this pool is free and is for everybody. And I'm just saying, we're not doing anything other than making swim meets easier. It doesn't seem like to
Well,
me.
so I will actually, on the flip side, the way that they're showing that building, that doesn't help make swim meets easier. Like where we cook, where that flow of traffic goes
Yeah.
today, that gets harder in that footprint.
Yeah,
Just so you,
but
like,
they're not doing anything else on the entire 3/4 of those columns.
well, and I think that's part of what I heard, like there was a decision on no slide. Like,
Yeah.
we talked,
Yes.
they weren't on the big list, but like,
That's my point.
we talked
I
about
totally
diving
agree.
boards, some other
Yeah.
amenity, and I
That's
get
my
digging
point.
in the ground and making a huge diving pool is expensive. We don't have like anything like that anywhere around here,
Yeah.
right? And so that would be a unique feature to
That's my
that
point,
pool.
yes.
And I get then it's the balance of, does that become too noisy or too loud for the adults, which I have a separate message for, but I think something that is, not overpowering, but like finding a balance on this pool deck for, those, pre-tweens and tweens and teens to enjoy. I think we're missing it if we don't try.
Cause that's a lot of votes on the far, take it from 3/4 of those columns is a lot of votes for something else.
Yeah,
other than adult
and
friendly.
if you weren't voting for one or two of those, which ones would you have voted for, right?
Right.
And nothing that we heard was different than stuff that we conceived of or talked about, really. I think the biggest thing was some of the usage time, which we won't be able to address, but
Yeah,
I think on the actual floor plate piece, I mean, I would question, like, can we consider the splash pad over by the park area? Cause that's accessible. If you have a year-round bathroom over there as well, then you've kind of got that changing area opportunity. And then does that allow that space to be kept as a zero depth wading pool area for little kids? And then from there, I can look at the other diagram. I did notice when I listened to the town meeting, just to be clear, I think at some point there was a comment about like building a sidewalk for people to get in for the swim meets. That was really about like have there be a gate where it kind of says planter over there. If you go back,
Yeah.
sorry, like it's just a gate,
Over here.
up there, yeah, because where all the people sit around that hill and then everybody's walking around in that really tight entry. And so the idea was if you had like a little double gate you could open up, then there's a lot more flow of traffic. I don't know if that's a code thing, but like people walk through the grass, the kids are all barefoot with the trees and the stuff there anyway. But it wasn't about make that a sidewalk, it was make it easy for people to get in and out that way. I think we had do not replace the pool with a splash pad in those, can one of those sinks be like a kid size sink, like the low ones
Oh, yeah.
in the
Okay.
bathrooms?
Yeah.
Cause we do have a lot of like little kids, like encourage them, make a kid size sink, maybe some smaller, like the lower toilets for them, something like that too.
speaking of that, what bathrooms will the people who are swimming be using mostly, from the pool? In the new configuration, will they have to go through the entrance again to get to those bathrooms, or can they use the family changing rooms if they're swimming, where would they use the bathrooms, the kids? Or
If they're
adults?
Yeah, I mean, everyone would just go back through the lobby to the changing rooms here. There are toilets in these two rooms, but there's only two of them. They're family changing rooms. They'll probably be pretty popular. So I'd imagine. Yeah.
And that's kind of how it's configured now, right? Except one of them's on the left side.
No, I think what you're saying though is really good. Like, do you want all the wet traffic in and out all the time versus keeping access to those restrooms?
That's why I'm wondering.
On the
is
outside.
everybody gonna have to be using this, coming into the entrance to go to use the restroom?
Yeah, because today you enter to the restrooms from the outside.
From the outside.
Yep.
I'm just wondering if that's the best configuration for the bathroom location.
Well, we've kind of tried it in a bunch of different locations. One big advantage of keeping it either here or here is you already have a lot of your plumbing infrastructure in place because that's where your existing restrooms are.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good point though, because you have a lot of wet back and forth and in and out for,
Into the entrance.
yeah, constantly for that. So I get it probably saves money, but that might be something to consider.
Or making an
Make
exterior
it
entrance.
worthwhile.
It can be a sidewalk back out there or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
Almost like if we put a door here and you could access it here, you think people would use it that way too?
That's what I mean, yes, that's what I would suggest is putting an a door right there.
Got it.
Yeah, I still think you're gonna have people cut in through the inside as opposed to walking around.
To control access, whether it's the.
Well, then, yeah, because then you're going outside the gate, because if that single user restroom is outside the gate, then wherever that fence line is makes it so you have to go outside the fence to hit those bathrooms. Yeah, I think it's a great point, Burton, something to push on.
For the community survey or whatever, one of the comments that was made, whether it was on paper or not, was the access to the pool is kind of lackadaisical. And that's more of a staffing issue, but certainly with design, whether it's that gate that opens up to the grass area or another door to the bathroom, I think we should be somewhat concerned about who gets in. And you do have to be a registered resident with your registered superior, whatever. I forget the pass.
Yeah,
those pass, right? Yeah.
I don't know.
They're pretty good at South Pool. You can't get in without.
You can't at North Pool either. I mean, they unlock it for swim team in the morning and then that side gate gets locked.
So it's not lackadaisical.
No.
Okay, so somebody told me that.
I think sometimes the staff is maybe less attentive, but it's not a function, in my experience, it was never a function of like, there was a way to get in without going through the front.
Or the front desk person is strict that they're saying you can't come in unless you.
That's right, like that's a staff issue versus like a flow issue.
Cool.
So I think it's great to try to have that classroom party space, the break room kitchen idea, like as a former lifeguard and pool person, right? Like having the guard office on the outside is great there. Having that visibility is great, but also like lifeguard stations and rotations would take care of that visibility. And so that you may be able to, I know, not just council member Kalish, right? Council members now. It was the one who was vocal about the visibility, having spent years of my life on a pool deck. Where you put your lifeguards is to remove those blind spots, not where you put the office. And so I don't know if there's opportunity almost to like flip that classroom space and kind of, so now it'll be the Flyers point of view. If you put that space on the outside with that garage door and that garage door actually accesses the main deck area, now you've created like of added space in the season. You've given yourself that space to do stuff in. And then the lifeguard office can, could
Or when
maybe
there's
come
lightning.
back a little bit further. You mean all the time? When it's 30 miles away and we shut the pool?
When everybody's freezing and everybody's got.
Yeah, and if you just open that up and now there's a sheltered place that's kind of indoor, outdoor. So again, this is where I would say, like, I've spent a lot of my time personally over my life at pools and I'm still doing it today with, both 3 kids on the Flyer. So I get it's a passion point for me. This was why, look at my interview, Brian, I said, like, I would like to be a part of that. So I'm always willing to be heard and then be told no, and here's why. But I think I feel like Burton's made some good points. The committee's kind of said holistically, we don't want the splash pad at the expense of a 0 depth entry or wading pool in that area. And so, I don't know what helps us make formal recommendations, or Mary, if you're hearing it all and take it back to the board. And one of our other agenda topics is a working group so that we can keep bringing PARC and community feedback to the process and not have it skip that step because it is moving quickly.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, Leslie, you heard all that, from Brent, I mean, as far as, and then Jordan as well, potentially here, like just with the project schedule and, you know, what's, with PARC having these, kind of strong recommendations now, and obviously nothing baked in at this point, but obviously, some of this may need to get council feedback again too. I just trying to envision, PARC's role in maximizing them, given that we're hoping to start construction, late summer, early fall, so.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some opportunity for adjustments, and I think this is a great discussion. Obviously, there are trade-outs on the budget side and also on the space side. We're a little bit confined at North Pool on space, so if we decide that one thing is more important, we may have to give up another thing. So just to keep that in mind, I think the top priorities here are that we have a pool that is mechanically sound and that is safe. And so the need for the additional mechanical room, I think that's one thing that's a given. We need to have that. Safety, I know the gutter system is something that folks feel provides more safety and comfort for swimmers, both in lessons and in swim team and casual use. That gutter system also provides better circulation and sanitation. So I think those things are kind of no-brainers from my point of view. Some of the things that we could potentially look at altering, if we really want zero depth versus a splash pad, we need a little bit more room, is my understanding. We may have to give up the classroom, or the classroom might have to get smaller, or the classroom and the break room might have to be one. So looking at some of those things. I'm going to be a proponent of the lifeguards having visibility to the deck, because it's not about the lifeguards' regular rotation, it's about them responding to an emergency. So even though the guards are out there and their guard stations are in the right location, if there's an emergency, they need the guards who are not in the chair to be able to respond quickly, to hear the whistle, to have that visual ability to see what's going on out there. So I'm going to be a proponent of that.
Okay, yeah, so maybe I agree with that, Leslie. I'm just curious, do we need 2 family changing rooms? They're pretty big as square footage on that right side. Maybe switch, if we're not gonna have the baby pool and just gonna make it a splash pad, you don't need to have a lifeguard overseeing on that left side, the splash pad. Maybe switch the lifeguard office to the family, one of that top, north facing family changing room. And have the lifeguard there, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, if we've already made the decision not to make the baby pool gone and the slash, you don't need
I don't think we have,
lifeguard there.
and Leslie, I totally hear you, right? And I ran a lot of stuff for American Red Cross and spent years of my life helping with the on deck mechanics and those things. So it's coming from a spot of like, I've lived that. I'm sure things have changed in the last 15, 18, 20 years. But you've got your protocols, and yes, the visibility is great. But you're still running out that door, grabbing the backboard, responding to whatever those things are. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't be out and close. Just in terms of, what difference does it make, or just switching in and give us those opportunities. I'll summarize my feedback, and I felt like there wasn't a lot of variation in the actual pool floor plate consideration. I don't think we gave good full attention to the community feedback on the types of amenities that the children want. And I would push us to look at a couple of quick options and understand just high level, does it blow the budget? Does it make other things impossible? And then understand what those trade-offs are. Because when I think about what would get used, if you work back from that, taking your love where you went with the mechanical stuff must be there. The gutter system must be there. After that, everybody goes to the bathroom. Like, that should be one of the first things you have access to. And then, the amenities on the deck that people will use all summer, I would say are more important than some of the other space that's being proposed or desired for different reasons, because that stuff will get used all day, every day the pool is open. Now, do you get full season use out of the classroom? Maybe. I don't know how busy all of our other areas are, like the building space here and, what that changes, but I would love as a park member involved and as a resident to see some other options that at least say, what would it look like to entertain some of those other kid-friendly amenities on deck while not intruding on, because I will say plainly, I hear and understand the feedback to keep it adult friendly, which to me means not imposing on that beautiful tree covered area where people can go and relax. But team, if you go out there any of the upcoming days, you'll see where the kids are playing, and it's not a noise-free, tranquil environment, but there is space where it's quieter and doesn't get in the way. So I'm willing to be.
I do feel like the public engagement made it sound like it's a very tranquil atmosphere there, because we
Nope.
saw that comment probably more so than any other one.
Well, and a lot of that's time and some time-based things, but again, when kids are there and playing during the day and when it's warm, like, it is a noisy, loud pool. Less so than south, right? South is more little kid friendly. North doesn't have the stuff that takes up space and, but again, I think that's, and as a North Pool sided person on this side of town, I know the children in this area want something to do. So basketball, those in and out, I love that idea, right? I don't want to be just the naysayer. It's great to be able to take those in and out. I think that would be great, especially with the shallower pool area. But if you put those removable, they probably need to be like on the side where this building stuff is, because that would interfere with the restfulness of the people along those tree lines. So I would not put the basketball hoops, facing that tree side and that expanded side. So again, I've just lived out there, I've used it, I've seen it. I don't want to miss an opportunity to help, but drive some change if we can.
And these are good comments. I need to defer to BRS on the number of changing rooms and the number of, we're required to have a certain number of fixtures in the building based on square footage and occupancy to make sure we hit that. But that's a potential option. I know we talked about the storage area that's inside this building potentially being, we could put it here, or we could put it, as part of a conglomerate storage.
Underneath the slide.
You create vertical space, yeah.
But I guess what I'm hearing is a preference for some wadeable water, whether it's zero depth.
Yes.
Or however we accomplish that, and potentially some more significant amenities. I'm not sure we have room for a slide or room for a diving well, but those are some of the things that you brought up.
Yeah. And that's where I would push on to support what they were saying. I think that also some of the push back on the swim team community to say, if some of your ideas are limiting what this pool could be for the rest of the community all the other times, like, that's an important part of it. And I say that equally from both sides. And I know, BRS, you guys have a tough job. Everybody's got opinions, right? It's never gonna be what everybody wants. But this is kind of that, once in a generational time to make an update. And I did hear, Mayor Laces say, I think we'd rather go slow and get it right than rush and get it wrong. And I know we're trying to move fast to hit those deadlines. And maybe it's the way we do it where it's phased and we don't do everything at once, but allow the planning and the time up front. Otherwise, we're gonna put things in a spot that we're gonna wish we didn't. And that's what I would try to coach us to avoid.
Yeah, from our standpoint, we want this project to be successful, probably more than anything else, and for the town to be really happy with the outcome from spending this much money. We know it's a lot of money. So, whatever we need to study or propose to kind of get the most people on board, we can certainly work through like a lot of your comments, I think. We are, like time is a concern, we need to have these drawings done by the end of the summer. But it needs to be done right, so.
Okay, team, any other thoughts, anything else on the pool layout, the schematic, any other feedback? Because what I want to do, just so you know, is jump over 3B real quick and talk about 3C, if that's helpful for BRS in town.
I've got one, one final thing. I think for the most part, there's a lot you can bring to the pool amenity wise that isn't going to be a budget buster. And if you look at Louisville's pool, near their Heritage Park, or I think Memorial Park, whatever it is, they have a slide, but the slide goes into the pool. And it's not a water slide. It's just a really cool slide that has a little whoop-de-doo at the end, and wow, boost and splash. So I think there are alternatives where it may not be the expense or the size of putting a huge slide with a run out and all that stuff. Like the wading pool, I think there's certain kid features that you see, all over the place in kid wading pools that would make a big difference. It could be little fountains, it could be little things that included in the wading pool, but things that, I think there are ways to add some of these kid-friendly amenities so it's not, quite a sterile adult pool that aren't going to be budget busters. And that's what I would wrap my head around if it was me.
One of the main reasons I would be against the splash pad where the baby pool is because that area is shaded because it's under trees. So anytime in the afternoon, a splash pad is very cold, especially the little kids when the wind's blowing and nowhere to go, but nowhere to go. The splash pads are just cold especially when they're in the shade. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I say the waiting. I mean, I think you need some kind of waiting pool there, 100%. Otherwise, you're going to have hot kids in a pool that's too deep. It's going to be like the water's going to get to their chin. They're going to be bouncing up and down in the shallow end, and they're going to have a splash pad. They kind of got to go outside too, and then, yeah. But I think there's just, I agree with everybody.
And I think we all get it's a small footprint. Cracking open that deck and really trying to make big moves is going to be budget killing. So I get it's a tough balance. And like Leslie, I loved your idea in the meeting, which was like it's a hybrid, right? Just because I think we're saying a full splash pad in that space doesn't make sense. So I think we're good on that. So what I'd like to do just to keep us moving. So we had talked before about if we need to set up a working group for two things. One would be these pool conversations, and the other is going to be community park, because those are both going to be moving quickly over the summer. We want to be helpful and provide the input that's appropriate at the right times. And on the timelines that you guys are working, do you have any recommendations if we were going to have a working group? Like, would we try to actually execute that during the day so we could partner with BRS and anybody else on these initiatives and just identify who from the committee would want to be in those working groups and then partner that way? Is that because with monthly meetings, we're just not going to be able to stay connected to what's moving quickly?
I mean, I think that we're gonna have to come up with a fairly clear site plan quickly. Like there might be time for one meeting and that might be it.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna have to start pricing this out and we have to start working in that direction. So it's not like we can have several meetings and have input along the way. It's like, this is the time to have it. And we've already gotten the public comment and we've already gotten the council feedback. So really, I mean, the feedback you're providing tonight might be enough, and maybe we come back with a few changes based on what we heard tonight, and see what that looks like. But we also, every time we do that, we need to bring it back to council to review. So I don't want to drag it out too far, but I want to allow
Totally.
for opportunity for input.
When's the next council meeting?
Monday. Oh,
No.
Tuesday, I'm sorry.
Tuesday,
Memorial.
yeah.
Gotcha.
And that agenda is pretty well set, but I mean,
Is there a view of the updated pool on that agenda?
no.
I just yesterday, I haven't
No.
had a chance.
So if I'm playing it out, so then the meeting, the next meeting after that would be 2 weeks after? So do we think it's appropriate, to give time to say we could do a working group discussion with, BRS and whomever after, end of next week and get feedback ready in front of the next board meeting and just have that, Leslie, being respectful, like we know we're not gonna derail it. I'm not saying I wanna get everything. I wanna make sure I can go from, asking to advocating for what we are doing and, just see where they get. And then if there's time for like a second iteration if necessary, great. If not, and things need to move, then at least we'll know we've done our part as a committee. So could we target a working group session for end of next week? Is that how that gets set up? Like with BRS, or like, we haven't done that this way. And I'm asking to learn because I think we're gonna be in a similar boat with community park, because that's gonna also move quickly through the design phase. So I'd like to plan for what that looks like for us, for anybody who wants to be involved.
I think we wait I think we wait like this, we wait for the designs and then give feedback. And when we can, I don't think there's a whole big point to give our feedback before they have.
Yeah, we have to have something to react to, right? They have the very hard job of creating and we have the easy job of
Correct.
looking and editing.
Advising.
Yes. Okay, so is that, sorry, go ahead, Leslie.
My short answer is I don't know. The agendas for council are set pretty far ahead and they're pretty full. So I cannot guarantee when this might get back to them. And that might not be the best methodology, but if you all feel like you need further time and further input, let's look at a working group at the end of next week and we can go from there.
Yeah, and I think what maybe I would ask is, from BRS standpoint, and you guys have to tell me if this is overstepping the bounds of the committee, like whatever would be helpful to give input along the way, because it's easy to critique when you haven't been as close to the development, and I don't want to just throw stuff over, but I'd be happy for myself as part of the working group, not to speak for anybody else, to meet, for an hour every other day and stay closer that way if that works. I
think we have that luxury every other day.
No,
I think let's shoot for one meeting where you all can give input, and I mean, I think we've gotten a lot of input tonight, so potentially let us work on what we heard tonight and come back and see what we have and go from there.
Perfect.
And I think a part of that work, just so you all kind of know, is we have studied many iterations of this already. So we had iterations where the classroom was up here and we had iterations where the restrooms were over here. And we have worked through a process, and that's totally fine because you're not aware of any of that, but we can sort of give you a little more background behind our thinking and planning as well.
Yeah.
And maybe that would just be helpful. Just the other side of it is if we're talking some pretty big changes and trying to get to the council quickly, is we need the time to understand the cost impact of any changes at this point too. So which takes time. Like our estimator would need at least a few weeks to do that. And we are, like, in terms of our schedule, we are finishing our schematic design phase this week and issuing this currently to be priced out so we understand the cost impact of how it is now. And then we have until the 4th of July essentially to make design changes and understand that it's still in our budget. And then after that point, we sort of need it to be set so that we can get our drawings done.
No, and that's great. And so, right, I come at some of this from like my corporate 9 to 5 job where when we put one thing forth, it gets over scrutinized, and things always evolve from that. So it may just be putting forth like a version A and a version B to get those and then find that middle ground rather than feeling like it's just one thing. So I
Yeah.
think what we'll target is a meeting next week to kind of see what you guys can do with the input from the committee today. And if that is nothing, give us the rationale. If that is some things, awesome, and give us the rationale, because as you've heard a lot of us say, we want to communicate, I think, differently back to the community, even in the public comment today. Just make sure we close the loop, because there was a lot of feedback that we want to make sure is clear for people, and that starts with us. So thank you. All right, I'm gonna put a pin in North Pole and myself on North Pole. All right, back to 3B, update on Town 15 rezone from Leslie.
And actually, real quick, yeah, sorry, Brent, can I just interject?
Please.
Like, yeah, yeah, Mary, I think, thanks for your presentation. You went through pretty much the majority, I think, what we talked about covering, so there wasn't anything else, right? We were planning on hitting on that. I don't think the budgetary stuff now. Okay, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, we're all set, we're good.
I don't think so, okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you, for joining and sharing that. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mary. You.
One thing I'll mention just before we move off the pool is the council's already getting feedback from residents saying that the residents approved the tax, and so while obviously flyers are extremely important, some are getting upset that it feels like the North Pool is maybe focused all on the flyers, and so just, I know you mentioned the communication, but just being aware of that to make sure as we're communicating changes, that it is in the interest of the community and the flyers.
I wrote down it needs to show that it's swim team supportive instead of swim team specific.
Thank you.
That's how
I think one dynamic that has been tough during our conversations is that when we talk about adding amenities at North Pole on site, like, what could we do that doesn't infringe upon like the biggest swim meet there, you know? Like already that deck space is pretty tight, you know, during a swim meet, so, you know, I think that's the balance, right?
well, it may, and this is part of what I said, like, I know that the flyers, like, have a process, have a routine. There may need to be some disruption in that to accommodate for what the town is saying. And I feel it as a Flyers parent and as a parent of kids who go to that pool, not for Flyers time, right? So basketball hoop, slide, any of that stuff around the deck is impedes the flow during a swim meet. But those are, you know, 3 to 4 times a year, not 10 hours a day over the summer. And I think that's part of where we as a park committee have to challenge that bias, like check our own at the door, check my own at the door and say, what is it we've heard from people and what do we want to drive for? So I hear, hopefully you guys, we keep pushing for what we think is right. Good, awesome. Leslie, 3B, Town 15.
Okay, this is really just a informative item. I wanted to make sure that the committee was aware that the town is going to be recommending a rezoning for Town 15. As most of you are aware, that's the 15-acre parcel at the corner of Colton and McCaslin. To rezone that, the recommendation as it stands now is for what they call open space recreation, which basically is a park. So there's open space natural, which would be open space, what people typically call open space, or open space recreation is typically what we call a park. And it can have typical park uses. So that is going to be an item on the June 3rd Planning Commission meeting. If anybody wants to tune in, attend, if OSAC wanted to offer any comments, that would be possible. And then it is also scheduled to go to Town Council after that on June the 23rd.
What kind of improvements can you have on something zoned park? Can you have restrooms? Can you have like baseball or basketball, what can you have and what can't you have? So rec center's out, but a basketball court could be in.
I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of special conditions that can be attached to any of those zonings. So you could have a open space recreation zoning with a special condition that it would allow for a rec center or a library or a civic space. So that there are opportunities within each zoning category to allow for basically structures. You know, if you look at our typical parks now, we have ramadas or pavilions, we have playgrounds, we have pathways and benches. Some of them have restrooms. You know, some of them have ball fields. So all those things are a possibility.
So it's not necessarily what the future holds for this space is not necessarily low profile. It could be something that is obstructive to those individuals that live around that open space. Is that accurate?
I mean, I think those things would be taken into consideration. You know, I think, and this is purely my opinion, but folks are probably not going to be hugely supportive of vertical structure that's very tall, nor lighted ball fields in the evening. I could be wrong, but those things might come up as concerns or as conditions that folks may want to
I think
apply to it.
I asked Stephanie what it was today, so it's commercial today. So moving it from commercial to open space recreation is a huge win and it removes a lot of the don't put a Denny's here feeling that has happened. So I think that's a great update, and I think
You're living
right now, Leslie, it's exactly what we want, is more things to be involved in with our limited capacity on park. So hopefully it goes slower and we're not trying to build a park on that space in this calendar year.
And that's another thing. Where does the budget come from? We're talking about
No, I know, it'll be a while, I'm being facetious in it, but I think it's great that we're moving it to that space and that it's open enough to be for recreation, because it doesn't mean it has to be, it means it can be.
Sure.
Right, which is the other thing, if the town wants it and community says it stays open, then it doesn't move further, but at least then it could be if we want it. Okay,
Cool.
Awesome, thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move quick to the last couple here, so recap of Wildflower Park Walk. I jotted down 4 things I'll give as summary from our discussion, if that's cool.
Please.
So kind of work backwards. We talked a little bit about the balance between like park maintenance from the town and what's appropriate for the park committee to push on. So we were out there and you can clearly see the one basketball hoop is slanted, you know, just understanding it, when or how those things get done is important for us to know, so that if it's something we need to prioritize, we can push for that. Otherwise, you know, knowing that the town is taking care of that. We thought about the shade structures, that's always a topic. There's some really nice benches that just aren't covered, and maybe just adding a couple of other small shade structures out there could help break up, not in a bad way, but like give some more shade in some of the exposed places. With all the discussion about a splash pad earlier, that could be part of maybe what gets repurposed, and if bocce is repurposed, if it's not properly repaired and then properly planned for maintenance going forward, to give some, you know, water feature access out there. So it's those are the points that I had. Anything, gentlemen, that I missed? So it's Justin, Burton, and I on the park walk today.
Yeah, my only question, Leslie, is the conversation around repurposing the bocce. I'm just curious as to if there's any progress on there, or if there are any ideas that are bubbling up in your purview.
No, not really. I think our current path is to at least maintain what's there and make it usable until such time as we decide that it needs to be repurposed or what needs to go there.
So I know when we were out there, got a little bit of a bocce lesson, so to help in that, right? Because it's an example, because we talked about some of the other things we want to do, whether it's a gaga ball pit, tether ball, things that wear down, that need the maintenance, and just like what role we have in that, for either from as residents through See Click Fix, or from PARC, is keeping it at a certain level. Do you have any guidance for how we just help best with that without being squeaky wheel, but know, like, yes, if you want a ball to roll straight, there's no way it's gonna roll straight in there today. And so what that looks like, and just how we help you, help us, help you. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that having this conversation is great, and just communication, and it can be, the See Click Fix is great, but an email is also fine. A picture is great. Sometimes it's more about us knowing what the conditions are, and getting around to all those spaces. So having additional eyes out there is really helpful.
The park itself was great. I mean, it's such an amazing, huge, expansive area with everything you can imagine in terms of kids' enjoyment, but it is in the sunshine. I don't think you can help that, but in 20 years, some of those trees, looks like they're all getting water because they all have drip lines, which is great. That was what I noticed, is that there's just tons of trees that are living everywhere. And as soon as they hopefully grow, that's one solution for shade out in that wildflower park area. But what an amazing park. It looks well maintained. One question I had was the wood chips. I know there's been a problem. Is there any solution to that, that doesn't blow any budget, or next steps to make, just keep them as is and just keep them blowing around everywhere?
It is a problem. It's a maintenance problem, and it's a safety issue as well. The engineered wood fiber chips that we use for the playground surfacing, they're great when they stay in place, but they don't stay in place very long. At Wildflower, we have very strong winds up there. It's very exposed. And, since the inception of that park, those wood chips have blown into that grass area. So that's part of the problem why we have a hard time maintaining the turf there, is because of the influx of both the wood chips and the sand. The solution really is to convert all of that to pour in place, which is an astronomical project because the footprint of that playground is very, very large.
Massive.
It's massive. But really, when we look at our playground needs, and try to balance that, that's one thing to keep in mind, is where does that fit in the timeline? And we may not be able to do it all at once. We may have to take just one, what we call the playground pit area, one playground pit at a time, to do that over, several years to be able to afford it.
Gotcha.
We had one floating thought we had while we were there is, we have, staying away from bocce, we have, at Founders Park, we have horseshoes, of course, we have basketball, baseball, all these sports. Let's just say I'm a family of 5 or whatever, and we've never done slackline, or we've never done horseshoes, or we've never done baseball. It would be handy as a community to have, let's just say at the community center, a way to check out whatever you need to check out. And I'm not saying have 12 basketballs, have 1, 2, or 3 basketballs, have 1 slack line, have 1 set of maybe baseball stuff, have 1, I'm not talking about a huge amount of equipment. However, it would be a massive draw to our community parks if folks had that opportunity to, and you could say driver's license required or whatever, well, however you want to frame it. I'm not talking about a lot of stuff, but it's something that we toss around. Like, maybe I want to go play horseshoes, but I don't want to go out like I did with bocce and buy a horseshoe set. So gosh, it sure would be nice if I could just pick up some horseshoes and go play it and then bring them back. Just a thought, and that would service, of course, the entire community. So thank you.
It's a good idea.
Oh. I was just gonna say, my other thought was that those workout, machines and equipment on the, I guess that would be the north side. Northeast side of Wildflower, those would be, those things are great, but given that the community park physical area is so expansive, I would be a proponent of seeing some of that same kind of equipment at a community park.
Yeah.
Because we've got multiple gymnasiums, down there for kids, but something for adults, and I think we even saw that in some of the feedback that we've been given, about community park upgrades.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's a huge space. It's
Yeah.
huge.
There are parks in Denver that are kind of for both kids and adults, like based off that fitness idea that are like ninja specific parks. Which really, I think, appeal to a lot of like this generation, the kids as well, but like literally any age group could play on it, so. Happy to share some pictures of the idea.
Wildflower spider web.
Now I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, I think that ties into, we didn't have this explicitly, so I mean, maybe we can just pause and get some clarity on the community park timeline, because I love those ideas and I don't wanna lose them, but making sure that we're injecting those at the right time.
Yeah.
So can we talk just community park redesign timeline, or do we wanna get to that in, updates from town?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, that's fine with you guys. I mean, maybe that's timely. We could do it now. I mean, I was gonna provide an update during staff updates. Actually, Leslie and Jordan, our project manager, is on as well.
Okay.
Cause that has moved a little bit quickly, but again, the last park meeting was in February, then the public engagement. No, sorry, the last park meeting was March. Then last month was public engagement for the pool, so there hasn't been a meeting to provide you guys an update with for the, community park playground project. The RFP went out, or an RFP request for bids. We got eight bids in. We recently interviewed 3, and we recently, chose, A to Z Recreation. So I can actually share the concept design from them. Again, nothing's baked in. I mean, this hasn't even gone to council yet or anything, but, and as we're moving forward here and talking about this, something to keep in mind is, potentially, if you guys are interested in helping with, a survey to look at the design and priorities, not as robust as the pool survey, but, something that can go up on Shape Superior in early June, so.
You do that.
Do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 second.
Do that.
Let me share
Can
my
I-
screen here real quick.
No, I think that's great.
Approved.
From a different,
Yeah.
this will be way different than the pool feedback. Do it. No, so just be mindful of time. It is 8:42.
I know.
So this is part of why I do feel like understanding what we wanna do as a committee and how, or if we want a separate working group where we can then carve off time specific for North Pool, which we will carve off time specific for community park. So we're not trying to fit that in with everything else. And then it's not rushed, and then it can be specific and a little bit deeper. So, would we be at this point, when would be an appropriate time for us to target a community park working group based on where you guys are and what you're expecting back?
Yeah, sorry, this is Jordan. Can I jump in there? Just talk a little on schedule? Because I think with this one, so just to let you all know, this is going before town council. This will be a design build contract. So the same company who's put together this design, this is kind of a preliminary effort. And then the thought would be that we would do public engagement, and obviously engagement with the park committee and town council, and have a little time for them to kind of make changes to this preliminary design. I'm glad it sounds like you guys already are fans of it. We thought that might be the case. That's why we selected them. So the idea would be that we get this design build contract approved, hopefully this coming Tuesday. And then we would use the civic space grand opening June 18th, and hopefully have your help to do some public engagement there. Leslie threw out the idea that maybe we even have like a booth at July 4th to gather more public engagement. There's the opportunity to put out a survey, and like Brian said, a little less or fewer questions probably than the pool, because it is a playground. There's probably less to prioritize, I guess you'd want to say. So we do have time, I think, for those efforts to kind of last through summer. We
Okay.
are proposing that we finalize the design sort of towards the end of summer, early fall, and that the install would actually happen next spring, to kind of go with some of the weather conditions that we would need to get this board in place put in. So we're going to propose that at the town council meeting next Tuesday. I guess there's a possibility the town council could push back and say, you know, why can't we finish it this year? The vendor has said that they could potentially, but it will kind of compress the public engagement piece of it if we go that route. So I did just want to kind of clarify that this one would not be move as swiftly, I think, as the pool design. We would have more time to kind of work towards our final design goal. So just wanted to pipe up and let you know where we're at with that.
I appreciate that. Less is more. So what I heard was we can hold on a working group for community park for now. The meeting on the 18th, because that is the downtown civic space opening, are we combining?
Yeah, and that was part of my staff update too, yeah,
Okay.
you know, I apologize, I'm trying to remember if I even updated the group on this or not, but the thought was to have parks in lieu of that meeting to do, Michaela will have a booth set up, or, you know, pop-up tent during the civic space grand opening, and park will represent, or be at that booth and, basically do public engagement for, this specific project. So probably concept design set up, the survey will be already published, QR codes and whatnot. So that will be in place of the, June meeting, obviously, because it is, the civic space grand opening is happening during that same time, the scheduled time.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was the thought process. So again, yeah, if, you know, if there is interest in helping draft up a survey, again, not as robust as the pool one, you know, within the next couple weeks, great. If not, I mean, certainly that's something more we could do as well, but.
So the next park meeting that we'll have formally then will be July 16th.
Yeah.
So then, we'll talk more kind of next steps and just making sure anybody who wants to as fast as the pool is going, not having another meeting could make that working group and those things just be informal and documented to be, because we won't come back together formally then until July, by which case that will all be done, because we heard July 4th, like design is set for the pool stuff. So
that's
we
true.
missed that.
That's true, but there is an option to have, if the group wanted to have like a special work session or whatnot, you can do
Okay.
that.
Maybe that's better language, just to make sure we're connected. So,
yeah.
Okay.
But right, hey, Jordan, just to be clear here, what we're looking at here from A to Z, is this essentially, would this be like the concept designs that we would plan on displaying on the 18th during at Parks booth?
Yes, they are. You know, we kind of talked in our interview with them, and I've talked to them since the selection and kind of working through the agreement with them. So I think we're going to have them kind of hopefully before that meeting. It won't be before the town council meeting, but before the public engagement, kind of that, now it's at the top, but the west, like that smaller play pit, it shows some EWF there. We asked that they show us options to get rid of that. That might mean like losing a couple of the swings on either side, like kind of shrinking down. There are swings in both play pits and they're pretty extensive. So there are going to be trade-offs, but that's the kind of thing we're looking at. So I think the next iteration that everyone will see probably will show that EWF removed. We did talk to them about leaving the EWF underneath that zip line area, just because that might be more ideal for safety purposes under a zip line than the port in place safety surfacing, if that makes sense.
EWF is engineered wood fiber.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Looks like Tim has his hand raised. 1 second, Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, first blush, I love the ambition. I mean, this is super exciting. So I love it. I definitely would love to participate in a subcommittee. The one thing I want to kind of push is at least a enclosed or fenced in area for elopement. Because I got neurodivergent kids and there's a ton of them out there, and elopement is a problem with ADHD kids and autistic kids. And man, as a parent, it's really, really nice to have a portion of a playground that's fenced in, so you don't have to worry so much about your kid just going taken off. And we don't have any of that. We don't have anything like that in any of the playgrounds in any of the communities around here. I'd love to advocate for that. So yeah, but this is beautiful.
Yeah, but we also do it and then add a fence for Tim. And then, not just for Tim, but I will say, Tim, like, it's, well, to support Tim, as long as I've been on PARC, Tim's been very passionate about that from his personal and community experience. And I think this is a great time at a big park in the middle of town where you can commute, people can meet. To have that kind of safe space for neurodivergent kids would be an awesome value add if that could be kind of woven in earlier, at least talked about, and figure out how that could fit in, just because that place is so big. Like, I don't think it takes away from anything else that we're showing. So thank you for reminding us of that, Tim.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. So moving on. So we missed Arbor Day. So I had 3E on the agenda, was if there were any summer or fall events that we needed to make sure we had representation at. We just heard that we're gonna all be asked as for our town meeting to be at the civic space opening for our next meeting. Are there any other planned events?
4th of July. After that, right? Like
Yeah.
if June is going to be our meeting, we probably have to plan for.
Yeah, so we'd have
4th of
July
July.
4th.
I mean, yeah, it was obviously
Cause none of us knew what was even at Purple Park this Saturday. It was like, oh, did we miss another thing?
what's that?
This past Saturday, all the tents and stuff were.
All the Superior tents were all up at the Purple Park, in the same place we had Arbor Day.
Oh, was that the bird? The migratory bird?
It was set up there and I was like, oh, what did we miss this time?
There's so many things going on now. I mean, that's not, I mean, I don't usually say.
No, I know, make sure we're not, cause we totally missed Arbor Day. So how do we not have Arbor Day?
We represented Arbor Day.
Yeah.
We had, but it came up very late,
Yeah.
right? Versus planning ahead and getting it out there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so July 4th, so, are people around and available for volunteering on July 4th?
That's it last year.
No, we did. And we asked kids, how old is America? When was it born? And the answers were staggeringly disappointing. Just disappointed in the youth of America and their lack of 1776. We educated some people.
All of it.
I'll be out of town.
Yeah, I'm out of town as well. Okay, so what we can do maybe for that, since we've got limited representation, is just put out in the email that we'll be looking for volunteers in July 4th. And then if the next meeting is July 16th, I'll keep an item like this for any other park planning.
Yeah, I would say, looking for, support and, well, yeah, sorry, I'm thinking the June 18th,
Yeah.
public engagement at civic space, yeah.
That I can do.
Sorry, yeah.
Yep. Are you guys able to be at the civic space opening on the 18th?
What
instead
time
of
is
our
it going to
regular-
be?
5 to 8?
Well, yeah, cause the summer market that got canceled a couple weeks ago, that's happening that day too. It's gonna be a big affair, but I think it's 5 to 8 now is what it's scheduled, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be.
Yeah, I can be there.
So,
Part of it.
A meeting, so yeah.
yeah, so if we get maybe some more clarity from Michaela about what we can do, and if we wanna rotate staffing, then if everybody's available, we do some shifts. Split it up so that no one's staying there for the full 3
No
hours.
meeting on June 18th?
No, the meeting won't be on June 18th.
Okay.
So the
Yeah,
next
'cause
meeting
we're
is
gonna be
July
on-
16th.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
all hands on deck with that grand opening.
Okay, so what I'll do in Robert's stead is I'll send out an email, just getting clarity on July 4th and kind of like a shift sign up. So we can split that 3 hours into kind of 90-minute chunks. Does that work? And then we just divide it up that way? Okay. I can't lose this piece of paper. One, Martha's keeping all this handy in the action items. And all right. Awesome. Sadie is not here, so we'll forego Marshall Fire Subcommittee update, which moves us on to any other remaining updates from town staff or town council liaison.
Yeah, so we already obviously covered the community park playground project. Also, yeah, the civic space grand opening, like I said, on the 18th. We're actually planning on, it's been a little nuts, to be honest, but getting civic space ready for June 2nd soft opening. So we're gonna have some limited or reduced hours starting on June 2nd. Essentially for the public to pop in and just look around at the facility and whatnot. I mean, it's lightly furnished. It's still definitely not completely dialed in yet as far as furnishing and front desk and whatnot, but we're getting there. So soft opening June 2nd, limited hours. We'll obviously push that information out to the public. June 18th is we'll start going on regular scheduled hours after that grand opening. So that's civic space. And if you haven't, yeah, if I haven't been there in a while, it's gonna look a lot different. Pretty nice. The second floor event space came out really well, sound paneling on the walls and whatnot, so that would be a good space.
Are there events planned for it already?
Well, yeah, Michaela's working on that, trying to activate that space over the coming year. I mean, we could, when we actually open that up to the public for reservation, I mean, we anticipate probably getting requests for, corporate seminars or whatnot, stuff like that.
When will it be open to book?
We're looking at June.
Okay, right around the grand
June,
opening.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's a balance of trying to get some stuff in there now before we open it up to the public. Or fully, because we're moving some stuff here over there as well. So,
Okay.
so yeah, that's coming up. Obviously pool's open this Friday, for the summer. So big one, get your splash pads.
We're gonna get them out at North Pool. I'm gonna wait and sit there and watch how it gets used. And where these adults think it's so quiet.
Yeah, a couple other quick updates. Black Friday trailer, wow, that has really taken off this summer. We opened it up recently for weekends from mid-May through October. We already have, it was used last weekend. We already have eight weekend reservations, so.
Wow, I
yeah.
saw it out on
Awesome.
Tories last
That's awesome.
week.
What's that?
I saw it out on Tories.
Oh, yeah, that's where it was
last
at,
week,
yeah, so a lot of people are getting creative with using, I mean, again, like we talked about in the past, you can utilize it without having to do a street obstruction permit, an alcohol permit, you can park it on your street and have your party in your.
That's great.
Driveway or yard, so.
That's great. It's getting
Yeah,
used.
it's definitely getting used, so, there's a few weekends available yet, but most of them are taken. And then lastly, a new program that we, rolled out, is an adult softball league. Councilmember Cowish kind of pushed that one and we're able to kind of make it work. But essentially, we have 6 softball teams that are gonna be playing on Thursday nights beginning on May 29th. On one of the baseball fields. It's gonna be very self-managed by the teams there, self-umpired, but we have 6 teams, so 3 games. We're doing all the administration and field prep and lights and all that, but yeah,
That's awesome.
so that's a new one.
Killer.
Yeah. So I think that's about it.
Awesome. All right. A lot of discussion today. So let's hit
Gotta condense.
the key summary points of the meeting.
Oh, sorry, does the council member?
Oh.
Anything, sorry.
You were gone. I just
Sorry.
you were traveling, your updates are not.
Yeah.
Okay,
No updates on my end, but thank you.
so summarize the last 1 hour and 58 minutes for us.
Okay.
In a minute or less, ready to go.
Public comment included the request of updates regarding Central Park. Park provided written support for the McCaslin Walkway Grant. BRS provided an update on pool renovation, town engagement, feedback results, and the latest concept plans. Leslie provided an update on Town 15 rezone to open space recreation, and then the committee recapped their Walk of Wildflower Park enhancements, potential bocce wood chips, maintenance, etc. Last, Brian provided additional updates on softball and block party trailer. Got 1 minute or less?
Nailed it. And then.
Is that too much?
I mean,
It's less than a paragraph.
yeah, that's fine.
Great.
Yeah, that's fine.
So then, just because I don't, as far as I've been here, I don't think we've done a special session or
Oh.
whether it was, so if we want to do that, or we want to do that end of next week, do we want to just let you and Leslie coordinate that and get back to us via email? Like, what's the
Yeah,
actual next step with
let me get
that?
with Leslie on that, cause like,
Okay.
yeah, what,
We want to make it work for what BRS, and then, like, some of us will be gone, but I'd make sure the
yeah,
whole
right, and you,
committee can be aware.
you know, and 3 or more members meeting would be considered an official meeting, we have to post.
Yeah.
Call it a work session, and let me just sync up with Leslie on schedules and.
Okay.
Get back to you, yeah. And then Robert. I'm mentioning Robert, we're gonna, with Robert, stepping down from PARC.
What?
Sorry, yeah. Well, he wanted me to share that tonight, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he did.
Robert stepping down from.
Yeah, sorry, it's kind of happened fast or whatnot, I think Robert wanted to share with the group, but his, obviously he's not here tonight, and I guess his work commitments over the coming months are gonna impact, you know, his presence or availability for PARC, so, with his permission, sorry, with his permission, he said it was okay to share with you guys tonight, and so he may be at the June, public engagement at Civic Space. I just know that, you know, he's let us know he's planning on stepping away from PARC. So as far as, you know, voting on a chair or whatnot, that can wait till July. Nothing needs to be decided obviously tonight, and it is past 9 anyway, but, obviously if there are members of the group, even here, outside of here that are interested, and, to be thinking about that, and then the group can vote on a chair and potential vice chair at the July meeting, so, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, sorry, I mean.
That's
obviously,
effective now.
Well, you know, he said it was fine with us to, start making the change on the back end, but, like I said, he may be may see him in June or whatnot, I just know it's.
So we'll add it to the July agenda to,
Vote on chair and vice chair, yeah.
I got that.
Okay. I didn't have the minutes.
How long can you have an interim or a stand-in? Is there, it's however long it takes, or you have to have it right away?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, typically there's usually, yeah, a chair or vice chair in place, so, yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So. Sorry, I kinda.
No, it's me to run these things, but I got all my words out tonight, guys, so I feel better. I can look at my children and say, I did what I told you I would do, and if the answer comes back no, like I tell my kids, sometimes you gotta live with it and move on. So we'll let that happen. All right, well, appreciate the updates. Thank you, Leslie, very much for the time. Tim, thanks for jumping on Zoom. And so at 9:02, we'll adjourn this meeting.
All right, thank you, Jordan, thank you, Leslie, thank you.
Hi, guys.
All right.